Welcome to the Department of the Air Force's third annual Data Summit, hosted by the Department of the Air Force Chief Data Office. Many of you attended our event last year at the Smart Center on Joint Base Andrews, but due to COVID-19, we have conceded to the new way of summiting. Today, we are excited to have over 300 RSVPs for this event. We are also excited to have a few top Chief Data Officer keynote speakers from both the public and private sector, whom our very own Department of the Air Force Chief Data Officer, Ms. Eileen Vadrine, will introduce to us shortly. My name is Corey Spate, and I am the Governance Branch Lead for SAFCO and also your moderator today. We have been looking forward to this event, and today the purpose of this year's Data Summit is to create a collaborative atmosphere for those working in the Department of the Air Force to cross-pollinate ideas across the organizations to enhance the way we do data. To get started, I'd like to share a few housekeeping rules. First off, thank you all for joining today. If you are not a presenter, please keep your camera off and your microphone on mute. Our speakers today will be given a brief overview of their work and their respective roles. This will be followed by working group breakout sessions. Throughout the presentations today, we encourage you to ask questions using the chat feature, whereby our team will be actively capturing those questions. Please limit questions to the topics presented. Once we reach the Q&A segment, we will read questions out loud. If your question is for a specific presenter, please feel free to note that along with the question in the chat feature. Now it is my pleasure to introduce you to our first speaker today, Ms. Eileen Vadrine, Department of the Air Force Chief Data Officer. Ms. Eileen Vadrine, the visionary behind the Data Summit and Chief Data Officer of the Department of the Air Force. She develops and implements strategies for enterprise data management, analytics, and digital transformations to optimize performance and drive innovation in and across all missions and operations within the department. Ms. Vadrine is passionate about pushing the envelope to use data as a strategic asset and create a functional data-centered enterprise. It is personally an honor to serve under her, so please join me in welcoming Ms. Eileen Vadrine. Ma'am, thank you for leading this effort. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Corey. I'd like to welcome everybody to our third annual Data Summit. I think that alone is pretty awesome. I look at these data summits as what I call our boots on the ground, wings in the air, and now that we're with Space Force, satellites and exploration, really discussions around data and the importance of how we move forward today and in the future. Data will not be just critical in the future. It is the forefront of everything we do in the Air Force and the DoD. And it is about being present about data now. We're not postulating about the future. We are amid, quote, the future. Data and comprehensive understanding and management of it is no longer a theoretical discussion. It is right here, right now, and this year's Data Summit really is focused around how do we accelerate that change today and how you can be part of that acceleration process. Thank you for being here and understanding deeply the role and the impact of data. I like to say data is a team sport, and we can't do it without each and every airman and guardian moving forward. We want you all to know that we are part of a forward push, and this is critical for us to really be ahead of our adversaries. If you're participating in this summit, you understand that critical role of data management, and data to support the future of our nation. Over the next 2 days, you will get an insider's perspective on our advancements and our unclassified goals around data. But it's really about including you actively in that process. We'll not only hear from the DoD CDO, Mr. Spirk, who is next, but tomorrow we'll hear from Joanne Stonier, the MasterCard Chief Data Officer, because I think it's important that we hear from our senior leaders at DoD and leaders in our industry base. We're eager to receive your inputs to the outcomes of our upcoming workshops, and we believe that you are part of the core solution moving forward in data. Thank you for setting the time aside this week to make this happen. I know that many people compete. This is a pretty busy week, not just in the building, but virtually. So we appreciate you prioritizing data. But I think the big thing I want you to know is we are here, we're listening, and we want this to be an inclusive process moving forward. I'd like to take the time now to welcome Mr. David Spirk, the DoD Chief Data Officer. Mr. Spirk leads DoD's efforts to develop and implement Department of Defense data strategies as the DoD turns data into a joint warfighting tool. Mr. Spirk directs the execution of policies and programs for data and information management arenas, including integrated IT architecture, enterprise data management, cybersecurity, and cloud management. Mr. Spirk believes in establishing data's role in the DoD as a key enabler to the DoD data enterprise as a strategic asset in data integration and across the military services and branches. Thank you today, Mr. Spirk, for joining us. The floor is yours.
Eileen, thanks for having me today and letting me say a few words. When you were opening this, I was reflecting on the 3rd Air Force Data Summit, which really does allow us to and we should recognize that a lot of where the department has come from and where we're going in the progress that at least I've seen in the 9 months that I've been on deck really is because of all of the trailblazing work that's been accomplished over the years now through the Department of the Air Force. You guys have a fantastic team. You recognize that it is a team sport. I've appreciated the partnerships with you and all of those members of your team. So right off the bat, I just wanted to say thanks for everything that you've done personally for the department and just being a good teammate and friend who I know I can call on 24/7 to get some advice, some counsel, sometimes maybe just some good old therapy. Hey, as we kind of get into this, I did want to say a few things about where we've come from at the department level and where we're going and the opportunity inside of that. In June when I arrived, we didn't have a data strategy, and I had some individuals asking me whether we were on track. That was General Hyten, that was DepSecDef Norquist, and my initial response was, I don't know. We don't have a strategy, which means we don't have a cardinal direction, which means we can't measure whether we're making progress towards that or not. So we took about 90 days in close partnership with the MilDep CDOs, Eileen being a central figure in that. What we were able to do was to really recast a draft data strategy that went from focusing on business analytics and really put the joint warfighting and warfighter at the center of it, at the heart of it. We recrafted it to ensure that anybody in the battle space, wherever they might be, whatever climb and place, as a former Marine, it's easy for me to say that, can find why this matters to them and where they should take part. We toned it down a little bit. The original version was absolutely a little over data sciencey. You could tell it was written by a data professional. And the air up here was very refined, and all the troglodytes down in the trenches need to learn to speak like a data scientist. And we believe that the magic really is when you have data professionals understanding the domain and the domain experts learning the vernacular of data. So I think the way we were able to craft the data strategy, the way we were able to set it out there, and the way we were able to set the goals, so that our data is visible, accessible, understandable, linked, trustworthy, interoperable, secure. And it's not lost on me that the first 5 letters of VOLTIS, the acronym that spells out our goals, also equate to VOLT, which is the Air Force's data management and analytics platform that we've all learned and modeled a lot off of. So as we step in and we think about the fact that now we do have a data strategy, about 90 days later, we got a gift from the DepSecDef. And that gift from the DepSecDef really was a memo on actions to enhance and accelerate data management. Working with the MilDeps, we were able to not only specify the role and responsibility of the CDO at the department level to get the DepSecDef signature on it, but we were also able for the first time to specify what we look at as data commandments for the department. Hearkening back to Jeff Bezos in 2002 when he kind of put out the data principles for Amazon. We didn't have them at the department. So, 90 days to get a strategy, 90 days for us to get actions to enhance almost our implementation guidance. And then inside that first bulletized paragraph in that memo, what we are calling the data commandments, where, we are calling with DepSecDef signature that data assets will be published in a federated data catalog with published common APIs. That automated interfaces, must use industry standard protocols to exchange data in non-proprietary formats designed for interoperability first. That components will store data in a manner that's platform and environment agnostic, right? Uncoupled from infrastructure dependencies. We've all lived that over the years. That it's portable, that will maximize data sharing and data use rights. All of these things that we have in this document that we can now point to are because of the lessons our MilDeps have learned. And again, a huge partnership with the Air Force, where Eileen and the team have really helped us to get this language right. Now, about 30 days after we got that implementation guidance, the next thing that we did was, for the first time in our CPG, our OSD level CPG, we have an independent data chapter. That's never existed in the past. So now, 23 to 27, we'll be able to measure and resource those who are compliant, and we'll be able to advise and take resources from those that aren't, so that we can recognize those that are adhering to that standard. So we're highly motivated about where we've come, where we're going, and that's just laying the foundation. What happens next is when we really turn to operationalization. Leveraging Advana in close partnership with Vault. I have written on my wall of my office, October 1st, 2020, a day in history. And it was because for the first time ever, we executed a DMAG without PowerPoint on live data in Advana, where we had the DepSecDef leading the service chiefs, leading the PSAs, leading the secretaries through a personnel and readiness topic for an hour and a half without one PowerPoint slide, but really just diving down into our data, because it does comport to those open data standard architectures that we call out when we talk about the data commandments. So that's pretty exciting. Turning the corner from there and thinking about what matters most. Again, not that senior leader decision-making isn't important, and that senior leader decision-making has to take place at echelon, but turning to JADC2 and joint warfighting. I think it was a few weeks ago, I was able to join Eileen and the Joint Staff J6, Lieutenant General Krall, at Aberdeen Proving Grounds with the other MilDep CDOs. And we were able to sign out some commitments for how we are going to move the concept of JADC2 forward. There were a lot of individuals, what is JADC2? Where does it move? How does it go? My commitment to the DepSecDef and to the Vice Chair were, we'll figure that out, but we're going to use this as an opportunity to pull the data community together to make some progress for you on joint warfighting writ large. And out of that session, General Krall and I signed a commitment letter. And I think the first commitment in that whole thing is really the most important, and it was one that the Air Force had a prominent role in leading when you were sitting at the table because of the work that you've been doing. And it was reinforce the reference defense-wide requirements to publish data assets and associated interfaces, promoting discoverability and access before seeking standardization. And I think that's really a lesson that we've learned from you all across the department, is that when you're trying to do this in the real world, it's messy. When we try to over-standardize, when we try to say, one standard to rule them all, we're discounting the fact that we have a lot of data and technical debt in the system. We have decades of it that we need to overcome one at a time. But if we try and over-model to one standard, then we're never going to be able to create the opportunity to deliver that data to the right person or the right platform in a disconnected, disadvantaged way in the time and speed required to gain success in that battle space, which ultimately is what really matters the most. So all to say, I think we've made some great progress in the last 9 months. That progress has only come because of the hard work that you all have been doing for the last few years. So I want to say thanks And in closing, before I take some questions from the team here, what I'd say is, everybody's always focused on forward. Everybody always hopes and wishes they could have done more and gone faster. Completely agree with that sense of urgency. But what I'd ask is every now and then for you to take pause, look back, and recognize that the piece of art that has come behind you because of that hard work is worth appreciating and understanding that you've made a lot of progress and deserve to think about and take some credit for that too. So with that, Eileen, I think over to you and the team, and I'm ready to take some questions.
Thank you, sir, for sharing with us today, because I know that the team has been working very hard over the last 2+ years. So I'm pretty excited now. I'm looking at the chat. Corey, can you pitch the first question, please?
Yeah, this question is for you, Mr. Dream. Can you explain how the Air Force plans to use Knowledge Graph to integrate data across the community? For example, Protégé for data modeling, additionally for tagging and storing mission, DICO data.
I think that we're doing some piloting use cases right now with knowledge graphing out of our lab. We haven't standardized on any specific tool, and that is because there are so many tools out there that we're really in the infancy stages of really looking at industry best practices. And I think that is where I think Mr. Spirk and I are clearly aligned, that we need to make sure that we're always being agile and nimble so that we can bring in the best technology moving forward. When we look at Vault concept has bring your own tool, and we did that intentionally and deliberately so that we could be agile and bring in new capabilities into the department. Many of the tools that you see on Vault are first iterations in our department, and I think that's pretty exciting. Mr. Spirk, do you want to share a little bit about where you think we should be going on tools, or specifically knowledge graphing?
Yeah, Eileen, I think your point on flexibility is really important. We know where we've come from. We recognize that we've tried to overfit in the past, and having an ability to stay fluid, see a new capability or a new best practice and rapidly onboard, that is important. Knowledge graphs being a component of that. Yesterday, as you're aware, John Turner from my team led a good conversation on knowledge modeling and the way that we need to do that in a bit of a better manner. Some opportunities inside that to see the work of others. So every time we try and create a new knowledge model, we don't have to begin, at that ground zero start point, but rather take advantage of some of those capabilities and work across the community, whether that's at DIA, whether that's at NSA, or whether that's from the Air Force or a component inside the Air Force. So we're absolutely exploring some ways to do that better. We do believe that there's some investment that needs to be made for almost a central repository, but being able to catalog those knowledge models, being able to look at and incorporate other people's work is really important. So I know we're kind of at the ground floor of this one. I think there are some lessons that we can learn from the IC, and we're trying to incorporate those. And your experience over there has absolutely, been helpful as well. Over.
Thank you, sir. There's some more questions. Is there a plan to tie data to process, for example, enterprise architecture?
Eileen, is that one for me or you?
It's definitely for you from a strategic perspective. We have very limited time with you, so I'm hoping it's definitely for you, sir. Okay.
So it absolutely is. Data is tied to the architecture. When you look at, again, the language that we wrote into the data strategy, it was with a full understanding that architecture is at the heart of what we're doing. Specifically, we call architecture out the first of 4 essential capabilities that we wrote into that. And we kind of specified it with architecture enabled by enterprise cloud and other technologies must allow pivoting on data more rapidly than adversaries are able to adapt. Now, when we talk about those essential capabilities, what I would like to discuss in terms of architecture is there's things that are data requirements, but then there's also things that data needs to inform and demand the IT professionals deliver to us. Not everything is a data problem, but everything impacts our ability to deliver the data opportunity going forward. And so we're working very closely with the CCPO, the Cloud Compute Program Office. We're working very closely with the DCIO, IE, so that we can improve cross-domain solutions, so that we can improve transport and speed of transport, and understand by mapping out some of those mission threads where we have architecture issues that don't allow us to do things that the data would allow us to do right now, because there are deltas in the system that we need to overcome. And I think what we're finding is we've got some great partners across the IT community who are allowing us to do that. It kind of leads me to another question where I think the Air Force is dead on in having their CDO separate from their CIO. I think it's a really important component, and one that we're also beginning to explore. When is the time for the CDO to exit the CIO at the OSD level? And we've had many conversations with the acting CIO, John Sherman, on that topic. Important to understand that John Sherman was also the IC CIO when the IC separated the CDO from the CIO. And so we're looking at a not a time approach, but a conditions-based approach of when the right moment for us to do that at the OSD and department level are. But the reason I think that's important, and I'm surrounding it and baking it into this architecture problem, is I look at CDOs as race car drivers. And I look at CIOs as the mechanic in the pit crew. CDOs need to drive that car hard and demand more performance from it over and over again. You need to be able to jump out of that car, look at the owner, and look at the pit chief and say, hey, it's getting a little wobbly on the right, side coming out of corner 2. You need to fix that because I got another lap to go and I need a better time. You need to be demanding of your CIO that they deliver the capabilities that will allow you to deliver the data at the speed of need wherever that is through the formation. So that tension, I think, is honestly good. It's, the whole analogy of the tension bridge. Not enough, it collapses. Too much, it pops. We need to make sure that CDOs can drive the CIOs and the infrastructure we need so that we can really unleash data at a commercial grade speed and scale. Over.
Thank you, sir. A lot of questions for you today. So the next question, what are your thoughts on the right mix of in-house civilian military data scientists, data engineers, software developers, and outside efforts like COTS and contracted initiatives, et cetera?
Yeah, well, this is one that I really should let Eileen talk about. I'll say for a minute, and then I'll let her go, because I truly believe that she's leading the department, that one, in her passion for this topic, and two, in her actions and activities. But I think that we're unbalanced right now. I believe that right now, all of the functions that are required to actually drive and then sustain this data-driven transformation are overly contracted. I truly appreciate every contract partner that we have, contract teammate that we have, but when I think about the way that I speak about it is, that's with a lot of rentals. And if I were to put it on a bar chart right now, I think we'd have this much in terms of rentals, and we'd have this much in terms of buy, which would be people like Eileen, myself, data professionals that are coming in at the GS level, and then down here, I think that's where we have our build, and those are our uniformed service members. If we're going to get this right, we need to rebalance that chart, and we need to have the bottom of that chart here with our build, which is we have uniformed service members, enlisted and officers who are steeped in data, whether it's data science, whether it's data engineering, whether it's analytics, whether it's custodianship, stewardship, management, whatever those things are, to ensure that we can, at a tactical and strategic level, kind of continue just unleashing the power of our data because we know what to expect from it and how to integrate those data-driven technologies. Until we get that rebalanced, I think we'll always be lagging a bit. And I know Eileen has put a lot of thought and action and activity into how we get some of those things started, because that's a decade to 2 decade long proposition to get that rebalance done. And if we don't get started now, we're never going to get there. One of the issues, the issue that I'm speaking with the DepSecDef about on Friday really is my position now that in 21, we need to put in an issue paper at the department level that captures all of those roles and responsibilities, the delta between what we have in uniform and out, what we're going to need to have a truly efficient and teamed data community of interest so that we can all continue the sustainment. So I think over to you to amplify or add to anything I just said.
Well, Mr. Spirk, I'm just really proud of the investments that our senior leaders in our department, both on air and space, are making in this area. Just this morning, we have, our department has hand-selected a few military officers to study at the highest level of, computer science, artificial intelligence, at graduate studies at MIT. It's a big, deliberate investment. And when our senior leaders talk about how we make a career path to leverage that skill set, that's just super exciting for me. So, some of the grassroots efforts that were done in the software factory, leveraging that capability, Ms. Knausenberger's Digital U, there's a lot of investment, and I think that part of our use case work is telling the story of the return on investment so that so that a resource stream continues. And that's where we need the help of people in this group, because they can help us tell that story so that we can continue to fight for the resources needed in this area. Corey, do we have?
Thank you, ma'am. Yep, I'm going to go to the next question.
Yep, one.
Okay, so Mr. Spurk, can you talk about the importance of data quality when we're implementing and executing overall data strategy?
Yeah, it has to be at the top of the bin, but it takes a lot of really hard work to ensure that data quality is consistent. When we say trustworthy in our Voltus goals, it's that consumers can be confident in all aspects of data for decision making. When we start to think about developing predictive and eventually prescriptive models from the data that we've been presented, if we don't have quality data to train those models on, we'll actually be doing harm, not good, for the department. So data quality is something that I at least wake up every day thinking about, because I know that the future is going to be built on whether or not commanders and our senior most decision makers trust the data and the algorithmic models that were derived from them to believe in their use in combat. So data quality is first and foremost at the top of things I think about. It does take people who want to wake up every morning and ensure that they're helping, that they're helping make sure that the data is representative of what it is and the system it's generating from, that where it's not, they're ready to show up for work every day and improve it. That doesn't happen on its own. It happens with real data professionals who do the the yeoman's work there, in ensuring that, you know, maybe it's not the shiny piece of AI, but it's really just almost that coal miner, like digging it out, refining it for the need. And that is one heck of an honorable position to have. Over.
Of course, I'm going to use this moment, sir, for a plug. We kicked off our second Datathon yesterday with AFWERX and MIT and the Tron group. We did our first Datathon last summer, and I think what's really exciting is some of the capabilities identified in that Datathon are actually operationalized in the scheduling tool on Tron today. So we welcome our colleagues across our department to help us wrangle the ARMS database set to, in a spirit of competition, to optimize that business process, because we need great data out of that data set. So I like to call it a cleanathon. We're cleaning the ARMS data set right now. You can register at AFWERX and sign up for your T-shirt, because we want you guys to participate and help us inform the rest of our department that you're an active participant in the process.
Hey, Eileen, thanks. And I'm a medium if you are handing out T-shirts, so I'm ready to proudly sport mine around town. I'd also say, you know, that the Air Force has learned a lot of lessons and taught the department a lot. I know you have a very close partnership with SAF CDM in their Provisional Program Activity Office that really, you know, years ago started cleaning that data and understanding, you know, how to take FMV, how to take WAMI, how to make it useful, digestible, and a repeatable kind of data workflow. Your help there really has been one of the things that's driven Project Maven's success too. So thanks for everything the Air Force is doing.
Corey, do we have one more question?
I have a few more, ma'am, unless you want me to.
Well, so, pick the best one. Pick the best one.
Okay, I'll take a while, I guess. Mr. Spirk, looking at the upcoming FY22 POM bill, it is difficult to recognize the investments directly tied to data futures. Do you expect any changes in the budget that relates to near-term problems to get after long-term challenges?
Yeah, so I completely understand it all comes down to budget. You know, in my last job as the SOCOM chief data officer, you know, it was absolutely frustrating to walk in, to be a direct report to the 4-star, and to realize that the first budget that I could influence was going to be 22 to 26. Meanwhile, I had 5 tasks from a guy named General Tony Thomas, who wasn't the most patient individual in the world, on the expectations of the change that he wanted me to drive from that position. What I'd say is it's going to be difficult to impact 22, but I do believe that we are well postured to influence 23, where we'll be able to point back to unfunded in 22. It's not a perfect answer. It's not the answer that I'd want to give. But I think that we didn't have these foundational documents at the department level laid out yet. Now we do. Now we also have the opportunity, because of our weeklies with the DepSecDef, to really foot stomp and trumpet some of the deltas that we're recognizing that aren't allowing her to get to that, you know, kind of center, prescriptive, predictive, data model future. So, the future's bright. You know, it was one of those conversations when I was thinking, and I know Eileen heard me many times say, you know, everybody, as we were changing leadership and we were watching it occur and seeing who was going to be nominated for senior positions, you know, oh my gosh, our investments, you know, is anybody going to slow us down? And my response was, there's not anybody that's not going to say, let's not do that data thing anymore. We've cleared that hurdle, right? It's not a question of, are we going to stay on path? You know, I think the question is, how fast can we go and how much can we scale? What I'll tell you is, we've absolutely got the signals from Dr. Hicks, who we briefed before she came in when she was on the transition team, that this is an area of emphasis for her. Her chief of staff, Dr. Rada Plum, 100%. We've already had, more than one meeting. And her question on data, she came from Google. She came from Facebook. She wants to ensure that we are healthy on the data front, and that's front and center. And they recognize that requires resourcing, and that requires investment. In prepping for the DMAG just this morning, I can't go into the classified details of the topic, but one of the topics was talking about, some of our ISR architecture and how some of that was actually very resource intensive, and decisions were being made so that we could buy down the PED and remove some of the hardware. My response was, we've made investments with Maven. We've made investments with data that should allow us to completely transform processes, thereby buying down the human capital that you have to have sitting there babysitting some of these sensors and hardware platforms. But it's not a one-for-one. It takes the investment so that we can recognize that future. So while people might be longing for the promised return so that they could take some of those resources and reapply them, right now we're still at a point that we've got to continue the hard data work so that you can recognize that future process. So it's a long way to say, I don't think we're going to see a boon in 22, a pivot of resources of massive scale to do it. I think that we're going to need to continue partnering so that we can leverage everybody's resources and everybody's capabilities where we have success. But I think in 23, you'll probably see, because of that dedicated CPG chapter, some very specific call outs for data specific investments that we'll be able to highlight and start learning from. Over.
And just to inform the team, those discussions are happening in the 23 program build this week. Some of our teammates that are on the call today, sir, have actually been helping us look at the various platforms across our department so that we can converge and federate and make really deliberate, intentional decisions about enterprise data moving forward. So we've begun those conversations, and they are hard, but I really appreciate the great work that's happening, because it's really about making it happen, and our teammates here are part of that solution. I'm very grateful for it. So, Mr. Spirk, we want to be respectful of your time today. I want to absolutely thank you for participating today. I know that we're rapidly approaching to 300 Air Force Airmen and Guardian online today. So I think that's pretty exciting. I think it's one of the biggest virtual events we've had in our department near term. So thank you very much, and thank you for your leadership and your partnership, because we really value it. So thank you, sir.
Eileen, thank you very much for having me. Thanks for the continued partnership. In a parting note, what I'd like to tell all of the airmen and guardians that are out there is, I'm a former enlisted Marine. It starts at a basic level when you enter boot camp, basic training, wherever it is. If you work hard enough and you have leaders like yourself who can help you path to your future, you too could become the DoD CDO one day. So believe in yourself, work hard, get that training in, because I guess I'd say the sky's the limit, but now I'm talking to the Air Force and Space Force. I guess space is kind of the limit. So thanks for everything you're doing. We need everybody here to believe in yourself, and please don't hesitate to reach out if we can be of any help. Thanks for having me, Eileen.
Thank you, sir.